thinks they're a photographer these days. As long as I've got an Android or an iPhone, I can take the best photos in the world. What types of practice or elements of technique do you work on to create these amazing images that you're able to create?
For me, I've learned a lot from shooting different variety of things. So not sticking to one category. It's allowed me to find what I love most, which has been great. I have my niche, I have my strengths, but yeah, shooting a lot of different types of people and different types of events has been really educational and challenging in a good way. And another thing that has improved my skill working on basics is it's actually from art class. I learned it in probably 8th grade or 9th grade. They're called the Elements of Art and the Principles of Design. And they're just like foundational truths about art in general, whether it's a painting or a drawing or a photo. And those things apply to photography. And so those things have really improved my work a lot.
Perfect. And so I like that you talked about not niching down. Niching down is such an overhyped concept, in my opinion. Google's not very niche. Amazon's not very niche. These massive, but Disney's not very niche. They have all sorts of brands under their umbrella. And you're talking about how being able to dive into these curiosity buckets, that these areas where you don't necessarily have it perfected to a T, has inspired you and allowed you to improve your craft across the board. I think the same is true of entrepreneurs and almost any endeavor and category that they're in. Same thing with visionaries. Before we dive into your vision further, I'd love to know what 3 resources do you recommend to other leaders, visionaries, and entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah. So my focus in photography is kind of limited as far as like resources for that. But for me, I would suggest entrepreneurs and self-employed people to seek out Facebook groups. Actually, Facebook groups have been like a shining beacon of the cesspool that Facebook is sometimes. Sometimes, not always. I like Facebook,
Right.
but I also don't like a lot of things. But Facebook groups have been like this little safe island where you can meet people in a localized area that have a similar interest. There's interest groups, of course, and hobby and profession groups. But there's no algorithm involved in the posting in the groups, and there's no ads. So Facebook groups that are specialized and localized to something that you need to learn or benefit from have been huge for me. I have learned a lot, and I've gained clients, and I've made friends. Those 3 things are like huge to me. And that's all thanks to Facebook groups. Another resource, and this just maybe is a no-brainer, but YouTube. There are so many incredible channels in YouTube that teach, for me, photography, but in entrepreneurial and money making and selling courses. There's so many topics on YouTube that are scotch-free, and a lot of them are high quality. Not all of them, but there are high quality ones out there that you can really gain a lot from.
Yep.
I call it YouTube University. Where'd you go to college? Well,
that's funny. I was about to say, like, not all professors are equal at universities, and you nailed it.
Yeah. I've heard some horror stories of, professors, bless their heart, that the students can't even understand them. And how do you learn? How do you learn from that? So, YouTube has been huge. And then another thing is to find mentors that are ahead of you and above you, but that can also be trusted and can teach well. I've had a few people in my life that have been able to mentor me. Well, not that I'm a challenging student, but they were willing, rather, I should say, they were willing to mentor me and pull me up to the next level. And that was a huge resource for me, is just finding the right people in the industry.
Those are all fantastic. In fact, the first 2 are unique. Ironically, nobody's talked about the resource of Facebook and YouTube. And I think it's part of the thing that some people take for granted, but there's a difference in knowing how to play on Facebook and YouTube and knowing how to use it as a productivity resource. And there are levels to that. So I agree with you 100%. Facebook groups, when you filter and find the right type of Facebook group, the people who are not even necessarily like-minded, but have a sense of purpose and passion around what they're doing, not just selling you something. And in addition to that, they're willing to be collaborative and come together in nature. Doesn't matter if it's paid for or not, you can find tremendous resources within those groups. And life's about that, right? Can't we say the same thing about our own neighborhoods and our own zip codes, our own states, where you can find lots of resources that are distractions and elements that can tear you down, as much as you can find elements that can build you up. It just depends, what do we focus our time and efforts on? You mentioned mentoring. I have
Mhm.
plenty of people who've mentored me when I wasn't ready for it too. I needed to learn, so you mentioned I can't remember the words you used exactly, but there have been times where I didn't quite know what I needed.
Mhm.
And thank goodness for a mentor who could help me see what it was that I wasn't willing to see by myself or wasn't capable of seeing by myself. And then, of course, there's always the opportunity for us to step into mentorship, to accept it with open arms and say, you know what, maybe I don't know it all.
Mhm.
What can I learn from this person who has experience in this category that's different than mine or superior to mine, and allow myself to dive in fully with that. Who's your best mentor? Let's give a shout out. Could be
Yeah.
dead,
So,
could be
so
alive. Who is it?
it's an easy one for me, and a lot of people in San Antonio will agree. Jim Landers. Jim Landers is an awesome guy. He's like the patron saint of learning photography in San Antonio.
I did meet Jim once,
Yeah.
and he
Everyone
had
knows him.
that effect. I'm not a photographer, and I was like, man, this is cool. He was in a photo contest group, right?
Yes.
Jim Landers. Okay,
Yeah, I
excellent.
love
Shout
him.
out to
Mhm.
Jim. Did you have more to say about that? I actually didn't cut you off. I got so
Oh,
excited.
and well, a little bit. I mean, he doesn't just teach the photography, which you can learn in a lot of places, but he also teaches the business side, which you can't learn in a lot of places. Not even photography degrees; they don't teach you business of photography,
No.
and most colleges. And so that was huge for me, was learning the business side, learning that self-worth, learning strategies to price myself and how to find clients. And it's something I'm still learning. I'm not just on the top of the mountain, filthy rich. It's just like it's a learning process still. But he pulled me up light years ahead of where I was, and has helped me a lot.
It's huge. I think one of the things that I've taken for granted, even I can't speak for everybody, but all of these specialized practices, whether it's chiropractors or photographers, they talk about how they don't learn the business aspect in school.
Yeah.
I think it's not because people don't express that they want to learn that. I know colleges listen to that. They probably feel the pain of that too. But the challenge
Mhm.
that we're not keen in on as mature adults is realizing, well, if they're not teaching it, maybe it's harder than we think it is.
Mhm.
That should resonate with all of us. Business is not easy. And somebody who's oversimplifying it, they either, again, if they have a bunch of people who've been following them who are winning and there's proof that they're winning, that's one thing. But in all reality, 96% of businesses are going out of business within 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't think colleges know how to bridge that gap safely
Mhm.
and correctly. So we have to be very aware that, this game of business and fulfilling our visions, it's not impossible, but it does take hard work, which is not necessarily anybody's favorite thing to agree to do. What are your thoughts on
Mhm.
that, Daniel? Am I wrong on that? Am I right on that? Is there
No,
any?
I totally agree. However, I do think that colleges, in a perfect world, if they could somehow teach the business information with the trade, that's a lot of information, and I guess that's why business is a whole other degree, and rightfully so. When photographers, when hopeful new fresh photographers come and say, "I want to go to college for photography," I say, maybe don't do that. I would humbly suggest go to school for business and or marketing, somewhere in that world. Learn the hard stuff from a good source, and then learn the easy stuff. I mean, I think photography is relatively easy to learn compared to the business
So are
practices.
you suggesting that counselors might accidentally talk people out of going to universities and ruin the revenue stream of the university if they were to honestly guide people to? I never mind. I'm going to leave that right where it's at. So
Okay.
there is a revenue stream behind all business models, whether we call
Yeah.
ourselves universities or brands. And sometimes we look out for our own,
Mhm.
rather than fully looking out for the needs of those that we're serving. That's not a recommended path by me, by the way, but it is something I am openly willing to discuss in this platform. So,
Mhm.
Daniel, we're going to dive into your vision right after a quick break. I love your photography. It reminds me of what I've
Thank you.
seen from Josh Rossi, who's one of my
Yeah.
favorite photographers, full-time photographer. And your stuff is amazing, and I can't wait to just get to know you more. As now that I live close in New Braunfels, and man, I'm excited to dive into your work and see what types of photography we can pull off for my kids in the near future
That's
as well. I
right.
think that would be a fantastic opportunity. So we'll be right back, everybody. We'll be looking more into Daniel's photography, diving into his vision, and see how we can help you with your visions along the way. All right. Welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Callum. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey Hey, what's up? And welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Callum, founder and CEO of First Class Business. And I'm excited to have Daniel Grove on my stage today. He is a photographer, and he's not just any photographer. He does those really cool photography concepts that, transform you into a superhero, and you can see the powers and effects of it. In addition to that, he does some amazing photography for weddings, for special events. We're talking about memories here. We're talking about transforming our future with memories. We're going to dive into that too. But the power of an image, if you've ever had, an image taken of you, or you've seen an image that makes you go, wow, even if it's not yours, that's that wow, that feeling and sense of awe. In fact, I've got LeBron James on this wall behind me, and he is breaking the record for the scoring record for the NBA. And that moment, that awe that's driven by that, it has a lot to do with the photography. It has a lot to do with seizing the moment, but it's now ingrained in history for all of us. And you can have that same type of effect. It doesn't have to be the scoring record or title. And I hope that all of you get the chance to have that experience, at least, even if it's not for yourself, for your kids, for other people who care about your life, for other people, it might be your pet. There's so many opportunities that go along with that. And now I'm kind of turning this into a promotion for Daniel's service. But why? Because I've seen the power and I've felt it of having that photography done and seeing the effect it can have on both the brand, of vision, and again, on memories of my own childhood. So with that said, we're going to move into a few resources and bring Daniel back on stage. First is the Law Spot. The Law Spot's run by Melissa Gray. I'm going to keep this short today. I almost didn't allow her to come onto my show because lawyers are often pretentious. They often condescend to speak over you. She makes legal simplified. I had a $20,000 lawsuit regarding our trademark, A Restaurant Connect. We won, but we spent $20,000 protecting our own brand name. I don't think we won in that case. We could have done a better job of finding who we were going to work with and who we aligned with to represent our brand than we did. We suffered the consequences accordingly. Don't be like Jackson. Don't suffer the consequences. Do your research up front. Find out who you want to represent your craft. Then there's Recovery Unplugged with Andrew Sosin. Recovery Unplugged is an addiction recovery program that also incorporates music. I'm a big fan of music. I know what it's like to help people overcome addictions, as well as be involved in the process of trying to understand it. Entrepreneurs, we have addictive personalities. These can be simple things like binge watching Netflix to escape life, or diving into apps for hours at a time to drugs and alcohol. If you suffer from it, my hope for you is that you will seek the advice and counsel from an entity like this. If you have a friend or family member that suffers, rather than putting the onus on them to seek the counsel, call and learn what you can do to help them get inspired to get the help they need. You may save somebody's life in the process. Now, the other reason why I bring this up is he's got over 400 team members at Recovery Unplugged, and some of his executives graduated from the program within itself. They are now executives with excellent families, and his way of leadership just aligns really well with my heart. And when I find founders that have programs that are amazing, I'm like, man, I want to tell the world about this because I want to see that entity continue to succeed, and the ripple effect and byproduct of helping people overcome their worst case scenarios and transform them into some of the most productive people in society. I mean, I don't know too many causes that are doing more for society than what Andrew has been able to create. So I'm just in awe at his team and what they've been able to do for people. Then there's the Water Project. The Water Project will not benefit you or I. People who are listening, we have the water that we need. My water bottle is usually right next to me. I'd have to run downstairs a whole 10 yards in order to get access to my clean drinking water. Meanwhile, there's millions of people who don't have clean drinking water on this earth. Their kids have to leave school, or they have to choose to leave work, and they walk 3 to 5 miles and they get access to water that may not be so clean. And that could be very dangerous for their family. What's cool about the Water Project is they allow us to see the projects that we're contributing to. And if you contribute even just $5 to that particular cause or project, you get to see the outcome of the project too. You get to see the borehole well that they drill, or you get to see the sand dam. The community learns how to maintain it. I just think it's amazing the amount of transparency and the depth of education that the Water Project does to help us get involved. And there are millions of people out there who could use our help. Now, if you are struggling economically as well, or you know of another source of challenges, another reality that people are going through, and you want to drop a link to get support or help for maybe your crowdfunding project, or maybe a friend's, or maybe it has something to do with another initiative in the world. My friends, we have 8 billion people in this world to help. And those of us fortunate enough to talk on a microphone as part of our work, or listen in and tune in to receive knowledge, my hope is that we can do more to at least spread the word and help some of those people out. So thanks for joining me in that and being interested. And without further ado, I'm going to bring Daniel Grove on stage. We're going to talk about his vision and photography as well. So Daniel, thank you for being here today, man. It's my honor to have you as a guest.
Oh, my honor too. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So beyond the frame, beyond the photo, what's your vision for those that you serve?
I want to capture milestones. I have kind of two sides to my business. One is the creative fun stuff, which is great. But then there's a more purposeful, more weighty part, which is I want to capture moments that are important to people. I want to capture them in a timeless way to where they don't look back in 10 years and say, oh, that looks like a 2010 photo. I want it to be like a piece of art. It happens to be digital, but it's a piece of art on its own, and they can enjoy it for decades to come. That's one of my goals, is to make long lasting, time freezing art that means something to someone.
Absolutely.
Like that photo of LeBron behind you.
Right, for sure. And as the guy with long hair now, it is amazing how many people key in on my photos and say, Jackson, you really should update your photos and retake those. No, man, those photos have meaning. I don't have to update the whole brand. It gives us new dynamics, but it is certainly helpful as well to capture the new memories, the new essence. So what are some of the favorite projects you've had that, when you think of the client reactions, I'm sure people have cried, I'm sure people have laughed. What was the circumstance and the case for those photos?
Man, I have made some women cry, and that's not something a lot of people can say in their profession with pride. So I definitely have. And one session that was particularly special was a surrogate maternity session. So my friend was a surrogate mother for a couple, and we did a maternity shoot with the pregnant mom and the bio parents with her. And that was just really special. That was something that just almost felt like another level, It's like, am I even doing photography at this point? Like, this is incredible. It's so meaningful and special to them. But I've had a lot of sessions that had a lot of meaning. It's just been an incredible experience to be so close to people's lives. I like to say that now this is more concerning the weddings often, but I'll say I get a front row seat at the best day of people's lives. And that does apply to other things too. Big milestones of life.
Yeah, that's huge. And like you mentioned too, there's the reality of being there at the child's birth.
Yeah.
Too, again, best day of people's lives. Showcasing their hobbies. Like we're looking at in the screen right now, the football player, the golfer that's multifaceted in terms of their interests. That's so neat how you're able to incorporate all of that and create these visions that people may not even have for themselves before they talk to you.
Sometimes they don't know it. They don't know any better until they get to talking to me, and I start to open up their mind to the possibilities of what we could do in front of the camera. I had a meeting one time with a 15-year-old girl. It was like a quinceanera session, and that was the planning consultation meeting with her and her parents. And she had no ideas. I was like, okay, well, let's dig into who you are. Tell me things you love, movies, entertainment, personality, style, all that stuff. And after about 30 minutes, I had so many cool ideas that you could see her eyes were lighting up. She was like, oh my gosh, like a circus themed photo shoot. I would love that. I love circus and performance, is all these cool possibilities. And we did have an amazing photo shoot, but opening up people's minds to things that they hadn't thought of before is really cool.
That is awesome. It is one of the most empowering feelings too, as to capture the essence of somebody else's vision, right? By painting, a potential reality of like what you see based on who they are and where they're at, by asking great questions, right? It takes a certain skill. I was in with a social worker that I knew quite well. And this little girl comes in who had been working as part of, I think it was Good Sam. But they were working in a bakery or something like that. No, they were working in a child center. Why? Because she had raised all of her younger siblings. Well, I was thinking in my head, like, she might hate childcare at this point. And no wonder why she missed work. So I literally jumped in. I was probably 21 years old. I jumped in, took over the session for the social worker, and started asking, like, what do you like to do? Like, what are you passionate about? What makes you happy? She's like, baking. And next thing you know, we got her aligned with a position in the bakery at HEB.
Cool.
She was super excited, like to go for. I was like, man, there's a gift to be had, and there's a shared experience too of feel good when you're able to help drive that open for people. And so I absolutely love the power of the work that you're doing, and I wish we had
Thank
all
you.
the examples ready to showcase,
I have
because
so
it
many
would make it
photos.
right, and it would make it that more powerful. So we've done our best, guys. Those of you listening, go to the action steps on the website and take a look at Daniel Grove's photography. In fact, it is danielgrovephoto.com. You can look at that while we talk. So what's your vision for you, Daniel? What do you see for yourself on the horizon?
For myself personally, or as a photographer?
Either one. Your
So
call.
yeah, personally, I want to be a dad that is there for my kids, which I'm mostly able to do on a new level because I'm self-employed. I make my own schedule, but I want to be able to provide well for my family by using the skills that God's given me and the skills that I've nurtured and grown. I had this crazy idea that I could make a lot of money doing something that I also enjoy.
Yes.
That's not a reality for a lot of people, unfortunately, but I'm working towards making that a more of a reality for myself. And yeah, that's my goal personally, is to do what I love and be there for my kids and raise little world changers. We need more of those.
That's so cool, to raise little world changers. I love that. And you talk about being en route to that reality. And to me, I see the quality of your work and I'm like, oh, dude, you're like beyond en route.
Yeah.
You're
I'm
about
on
to
the
cross
journey.
that finish line, of being able to make that happen. But at the same time, moving from the hyperbolic world to the reality that business is hard. There's a lot of components to that. So I appreciate your reverence for the reality that there's more to do to be able to sustain and build that. And while I'm grateful for the 4-hour work week and the lessons that it taught, especially in relation to becoming part of the new rich, those who are able to do what they love while working, I've never been a big fan of the concept of a 4-hour of work per week, especially since Tim Ferriss works far more than 4 hours. He posts on LinkedIn 4 hours per week, let alone the rest of the conferences he participates in and does. But you talk about it from the standpoint of there's more to do. Do you feel like providing for your family means becoming the next Jeff Bezos, and having to have billions of dollars per child? Or do you feel like there's a balance between, world conquering production as a photographer and, maybe there's the other side. What if you were just a dad who didn't make a massive name for yourself, focused on your family and making those little world changers, and made it $100,000 per year salary, and had your means taken care of? Well, what strikes success in your opinion?
I would call that man rich. If he has what he needs and has kids with good heads on their shoulders and has a strong marriage, he's rich. It's not how much is in your bank account. It's the quality, not the quantity. So that's kind of my goal is, I don't know. I don't want to be the next Jeff Bezos. I don't want to be empire. I don't at this point, and I can't speak for 25 years in the future, but I don't want to have a brand that has like a huge empire of other people under me. And, this whole expansive thing, that's not my vision right now. I just want to have enough for the now and a little bit for the future, because as you can tell, things are getting more expensive every year. So that's a little part of my dynamic there. My equation is trying to make sure that I can, afford the next 10 years. But I just want to have enough to have my kids stable, and I don't want billions. That actually doesn't turn out very well for a lot of people, right? So that's not a fix for life problems. It's what's in here and what's in here that can fix things. And I believe that God is a huge element to that as well. So that's
for those listening in. Daniel pointed to his heart and his mind, as those being the elements that matter. And of course, as you said, God being part of that equation. And the money, for me, it's a vehicle. It's a
It's a
resource,
tool. Yeah.
and how we use it depends. But the more money you have, it's almost kind of like it's an accelerator for life.
Mm.
And if you don't know how to control that accelerating power
Yeah.
or the brakes that go along with it, it can certainly cause massive destruction in our lives. You can quickly drive a Ferrari into a brick wall much faster than you anticipated. So it is worth preparing ourselves for those realities. Speaking of brick walls, what is the absolute worst leadership experience that you've ever had?
So I've been doing photography since high school, and it's kind of grown. But during that journey, I've had various full-time jobs. So I had a job where my boss was scary. He was intimidating and unpleasant. When he called you, he started checking your desk, making sure you were on task. Dotting your I's, crossing your T's. When he came to the room, you think you're in trouble. That's not healthy, and it's toxic, and it was awful. It was stress-inducing when he came in. And after that, I had another boss that was the opposite. And I was like, when he walks in, you just assume he's ready to tell a good joke, just to hang out, to be your friend. There's still tasks and responsibilities. Like that's not what I'm talking about. But he's warm and welcoming, and it's a healthy relationship. So yeah, that was my worst, was just having that boss that when he walked in, you think you're in trouble, and that's not good.
You have a book in there. It's Rich Boss, Poor Boss.
Oh yeah, is that part of his story?
You've heard Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
As a book by Robert Kiyosaki, it sounds like you've got a rich boss and a poor boss. To learn from. What was he looking at on your desk?
I don't know. I just want to make sure everything was perfect. I'm scared.
Oh my goodness, that is weird. Yep, there are. I guess we can call them leaders out there. There are people like that.
People in control. They may not be a leader, but they are in control.
That's true. That's true. They don't only think they have control, but in many cases they are empowered with control that affects us. So what's your best leadership experience that you've ever had?
I hate to circle back to what we've already said in the past, but with Jim Landers, he was a great leader in that he was patient, because I had so many battles in my mind. Joyce Meyer's The Battle of the Mind. I was struggling to get over multiple hills of psychological doubt and limits that I put on myself in terms of my business growth and methods that I could make money through my photography. But he was patient with me, and he asked those great questions, those mic drop questions that stuck with me and made me answer them in the right way as I was more honest with myself. So yeah, he was a great leader in that regard, that he helped me grow in a good way.
My goodness, what were the mic drop questions that he asked you? Do you remember any of them?
They're all
struggles that you were going through. If you don't mind, if they weren't too personal, but other visionaries might be feeling the same way. They might be watching and be like, "Man, he overcame it. I want to overcome it." What does that look like?
I don't remember the specific questions. There are more things that are burned in my subconscious, and I have memories of our talks. We would do like maybe a weekly phone call and some other back and forth. But I remember these talks we would have where he would ask me a question like, "How much is an hour of your life worth?" I'm like, I don't know. And then how much money do you need to survive? You need to do math to get that answer, and you have to be honest and include things you may not want to include. And then you get a big number like, oh my gosh, I have to have this number met, at least to survive. So things along those lines, not those exact questions, but it was things that you have to ask yourself before opening a business would be good. Or if you're too late already started, things you need to answer quick to stay afloat and not be wasting your time.
They're huge. There are many entrepreneurs. And I consult for a living. It's a large part of what I do. And it is terrifying how few entrepreneurs know those types of answers. And they are essential. And it's terrifying until you just hear it all the time. You're like, okay, well, people are finding a way to survive. But I think a lot of people assume that when you look at and assess the worst case scenario, that you become a self-fulfilling prophecy of that worst case scenario, when in fact, that's not the case. That's not how a self-fulfilling prophecy works. When you have your worst case scenario planned out, but you've also prepared out your best case scenario, and you hit your middle ground in between, it can often give you a sense of hope and a sense of purpose that, okay, I was able to accomplish this and then some, and I'm working towards that healthy goal of what I want in the future moving forward. So having a firm relationship with your existence, your current existence and your reality is a massive step up. And that's cool that Jim Landers helped you figure that out. Is there
Mhm.
any other, what was holding you back from wanting to move into your photography full time and accept the skill set that you had as something people would value?
It was generally regarding prices and value of what I did. He had this lofty vision. To me, it was lofty at the time that you can make thousands, not just make thousands off of a photo shoot or wedding, but that it's actually worth that. And I almost disagreed. I was like, oh, I could never charge over $500 for a family photo shoot. Like no one's going to pay that. No one. But I was wrong. And he had ways of
Exactly.
proving me wrong and backing it up. It
Yep.
wasn't his opinion. It was his experience and his knowledge over years of doing this and coaching others who had become very successful.
Yep.
The price jump is a big thing for all entrepreneurs. Like, how much do I charge? There's competition. There's my experience maybe isn't that much. I can't charge more than this level. No one will ever hire me. Um, it's a big battle of your mind and your self-worth, your self-value, the vision you have for your service, whatever that is. How much is it really worth? Well, people pay all kinds of numbers for all kinds of things around the world. Maybe it's just you're in the wrong audience. it's,
Right.
it's not that you're not good enough. It's the audience you are reaching or maybe stuck in doesn't value what you're doing enough.
Good for him for hitting that point.
Yeah,
That is a
that was
massive
hard for
one.
me.
So, it's hard for you because it's for a number of reasons, but we're talking about the difference between the ideal client, which is what people think they talk about, and what I call the typical client.
Hmm.
And people get so obsessed with the typical client reality that they face on the daily basis because they're talking to him so often, they forget the existence of their ideal client and they forget to use a language associated with the ideal client. So what happens is you talk to 99 typical clients, people, oh, I would never pay for that in photography. Oh, I would never, oh my gosh, someday when I'm rich, I'll pay for that, but not right now, Daniel. And
That's an
oh
arm and
man,
a
I
leg.
wish. And you're hearing all those no's so often from people who aren't qualified. They're not in the moment. There's only 5% of your market at the time who is ready to buy. And so you hear 95% of people say no. And then when you get to the 96th person, what often happens is, oh, I know you don't want it just like everybody else. And the ideal client goes, oh, with that attitude, you're right.
Yeah.
I don't want it. Thank you. Yeah, I'll take more information and look for somebody who exudes hope, and who's ready to talk to me at a higher level. That is a tremendous challenge for all visionaries and entrepreneurs out there, is to stay in the mindset that the very next conversation, every single conversation, is a potential ideal client, but I cannot succumb to talking to ideal clients with typical client behaviors
Yeah.
ingrained in my own communication patterns. What are your thoughts on that? You've had some experience with this for a couple of years. Where would you take that? What have you seen? What can you shed light on for the audience?
Yeah, definitely. I've come to a point where when someone doesn't, I don't want to say can't afford me, but they don't want to afford me, right?
Right.
That's the case for most people, not all. But for those people who don't want to afford me or can't find a way to not get hurt about that and then try to make amends and try to fix things and make well, I'll do it for this much. How about for this much? I'll lower my price. I no longer feel the urge to do that at all. I feel empathy for them because there's a lot of things I can't afford. And I also can't afford myself. That's another hard lesson I learned from Jim is if you can't afford yourself, you're doing all right. You shouldn't be able to afford yourself. That's a
Wow.
goal as I want to reach that next level. But yeah, when someone can't afford me or doesn't want to, I don't get butthurt about it. I move on and I say, okay, well, if anything changes, let me know. Any questions you have, just write me anytime. I'm not going to judge them. Also, I don't want to make them feel bad about their circumstance because I've been in circumstances I can't control and it hurt, So I leave them and I'm polite to them and professional still, and I move on. I move on to the next person. Instead of wasting my time compromising, I'm going to use that time with someone who values me. Keep my weekends open instead of booking cheap stuff. I'm going to keep my weekends open for the big stuff because that's what I need to be booking. I need to make myself available for the future that I want.
That's right.
And it's hard, but it all comes back to your view of yourself, your self-worth, and your vision for what you do.
Absolutely. There's a balance to be had on this too. Visionaries, entrepreneurs looking to scale exponentially. If you have this skill set that Daniel Grove has, one that is just like unheard of in the market, where you can visually see the value of what's there, then you also have the opportunity to tap into a certain level of free service. So I'm going to go against the grain here with what you said,
Okay.
because there's price dropping, but there's also recognizing a strategic relationship, and there's a difference there. So for instance, Anthony Edwards right now is becoming the new face of the NBA. The playoffs are on, and everybody's talking about him like he's Michael Jordan. He's saying all the right things to win the media's attention in the right ways, and saying, don't compare me to him. He's a legend. He's the best. And it's creating this incredible PR storm around him and LeBron James, and how LeBron James has handled those questions versus him, et cetera. And there's this drama going on. But if Anthony Edwards wanted the photo from you, wanted you to be that photographer, and you decide, or you propose to him, hey, I'll do this photo shoot for you, for, pro bono, free of charge. Do you see the value in what would happen if you had that one session move forward?
Yeah. So yes and no. I am not a sports guy, so I don't have insight into his, history and his reach. But
Michael Jordan is, right?
Yeah. Is he the new Michael Jordan?
He's up there. He's on his way.
So if I believe with honesty that me doing this work for him is going to get me the work that I want, then I'll go forwards with it. But it's really hard to make that judgment unless I know someone. And maybe if we already have a relationship, there's a more likelihood that'll work out, that I'll actually benefit from it. I've done a lot of pro bono stuff. Half of it is for fun and for learning on my own behalf. And the other half is because I made promises that never happened. I've shot popular, semi-famous influencer people that have big numbers on their social media, but their reach didn't help me. What I did for them didn't help me. I have had some that did help me. So I'm not like completely callous to working for.
I love what you said. You're hitting super important highlights. You said semi-famous. And you said people who, if you're not LeBron on the Michael Jordan level, and if they are going to bury what you did, if they are not a openly grateful individual that expresses gratitude, you should take that as a sign that you're not going to get the endorsements that you think you're going to get. There are levels, there are strategic levels to pay attention to in relation to this concept. And you don't have to give it for free. Most people like that are going to end up paying you for it anyway, especially those who have that gratitude mindset. They're not just going to take advantage of you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I've worked with nobodies that did so much more for me than the somebodies, so many time and time again. And in the photography world, there's a big, I don't want to say debate, but it is definitely a topic of discussion you see on all the Facebook groups, is TFP. It stands for trade for photo, time for portfolio. It essentially means photographer and model are give each other their services for free, and they both benefit. That's the key. If you're not benefiting, if you're not both benefiting from it, then don't waste your time. But if you will benefit from shooting a model you never shot before, or you're new, and this is a great chance to learn with no risk of money on the table, and they're maybe new and they want to learn posing and working with stuff, then it's great. Both people benefit, and we're both happy. But
absolutely,
if it's not mutual beneficial, it's kind of it might be seen as a waste of time.
Right. Absolutely. And again, there's that distinguishment. We love to put people on the A-list pedestal that don't deserve to be there. And if I don't say the name to you, if you don't recognize the name, then they're not A-list, in my opinion. And that's not a popular belief, right? If you're talking about somebody local who has a great, influence, and they want to be seen as an A-lister, the last thing you want to do is call them a B-lister. They can still hurt your life and hose you. My point with that is the A-listers that I've worked with, the people that are, or the B-listers that I've worked with that are on their way to A-list, they don't take advantage of people. They're very conscious of their reputation. They're very conscious of those that they serve. Anybody who doesn't is on the fast track to being not only a B, C, D, and F lister, but irrelevant, or a mark in the history books of who not to be like. Those types of people, they're fairly common. There's more pretenders in the market than there are contenders, as my buddy Cesar Torres would say. Big fan of that quote. So thank you for derailing a little bit with me onto that. We're going to move into another, really the most powerful lesson. So what is, out of all of your experiences, if this was the last chance to share a powerful lesson in the audience, what powerful lesson can other visionaries learn from your experience, Daniel?
is to find that thing you can offer the world that you enjoy doing. And it's sort of, you maybe see it as a niche service, but I think that the most important thing you can do as a business owner, and the best lesson that I've learned, is to find what I'm passionate about and what I can do for the rest of my life if I won the lottery and didn't need to work ever again. Now, another thing, Jim Landers, Mike dropped on me was, if you won the lottery and didn't ever have to work again after that for the rest of your life, what would you do with all that time? And that's the thing you enjoy most and are passionate about. And for me, that would still be photography and creating art. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm pursuing and getting the best at, is doing that thing that I'm passionate about, that I've been gifted to do, and that I have the platform to do right now.
Love that. So find that thing that you offer to the world that you enjoy doing, what you're passionate about, would do even if you didn't have to work, and do that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's find ways to stand out. There's other people that will do the unique thing that you do. Nothing's that unique anymore with this age of information, and people are learning and doing amazing things around the world. There's not a whole lot of new stuff out there, and that's all right. But there's still maybe 5% that do the unique thing that you do. But you need to find ways to stand out, at least stand out locally, so that people see you as the expert in that thing, and they'll willingly put down the big bucks or whatever you require to do that for them.
Absolutely. Well, we're talking a little bit now about the difference between the red ocean and the blue ocean. For those of you who've been to business school or had the basic business concepts, red oceans are shark infested territories where blood's in the water because everybody's a photographer and does that. Then there's the blue ocean of nobody's there. So create a new market and you'll have the irresistible ocean everybody wants. Well, that is partial truth to that. You also have to market an ocean that nobody's heard of and nobody wants to be the first to go to. So there's a different challenge. But when you rise above in the red ocean, when you're the provider who stands out, you actually have a far more lucrative opportunity than if you just try to go create a new ocean that nobody's aware of. So there's ways to look at this on both sides. There's advantages, there's pros and cons. Assessing it, having mentors who help you assess it, joining Facebook groups, as Daniel mentioned, all important aspects to understand what's right for you. But I do love the concept of find what you love to do, figure out what that looks like. That's why we created passionpro.org as well. It's a free resource to help people explore their passions and see if they're truly off to the races, building what they are aligned with and love. And as I mentioned, that's a free resource. So feel free to use it, everybody. Let's walk through a little bit more of these, the aspects of using photos and memories to transform your future. When I say that, I mean, I wrote that, hoping that it aligned with it, where you're going. Do you believe, Daniel, photos and memories can transform a future?
For sure. Yeah. On the client side, the photos are very important. They're a very important service. They have a lot of value. It's not just a few pictures. It's not just a JPEG file on my hard drive, but those are memories and emotions that are frozen forever. Memory is not reliable. Even in court, memory, eyewitnesses and things are becoming less useful because memory changes and shifts. And every time we remember, we're remembering the last time we remembered, which is remembering the last time we remembered. And it's not steadfast. And so the art of photography and videography is a unique way to freeze that for sure. And it won't change, not the way memory changes. So I see it as a very important thing that helps people's futures. It helps them look back and remember where they've been. With kids, they grow up so fast. I have 5 of them and they are all little time machines making time fly by, but being able to freeze their childhood or different stages of their infancy and their baby pictures, like that's important. And it also, the dark side of this is that it serves a really special purpose when someone is not with us anymore. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people, longtime clients, reach out, say, "Hey, my dad passed away and the last photo you got was at our wedding. So thank you for that."
Wow.
Those types of things are like, oh, gut punch. But it reminds you that what I'm doing is legit, is important. And it's a service that is valuable. It's not just a cool American thing to have photo shoots done every year. That is definitely a societal thing, but beyond that, it's important and serves a purpose.
It's big. It can transform the future. I would even say for good and for bad, or for light and for dark. Like for instance, the lack of the photos, it can create a bit of darkness and loss of did these things really happen? Did these events really matter? Did anybody care about me when I was going through that experience? So capturing it, whether you have a professional photographer or you are a self photographer, remembering that what you're capturing is telling a story, and also then re-emphasizing that story over time. When I was in Uruguay, I had a tough time. And it was a very hard 2 years. I love that experience. Thank goodness I recorded a lot of the positivity, but I did take a few pictures of myself, a few selfies, crying at my desk.
Mm.
Like it was miserable. I lost 45 pounds. I had gone to the hospital several times. They're about to ship me out of the country because of how bad my health was. And if I had chosen to focus the story and the memory of that experience only around those dynamics, right, of the negative, then you're right. 15, 20 years later, it would be very easy to lose sight of all the good that did happen at the same time. So, what else would you recommend in terms of, do you know a Razor Ramon by chance?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay.
It's a cool name. I want to
Yeah,
know him.
it is a cool name. We got a guest that came in, and we're gonna experiment a little bit. So I'm gonna bring Razor on with us real
Ooh.
quick. Razor, can you hear us?
Say hello to the
He can
backyard.
hear us. Awesome.
Razor Ramon.
Are you a big fan of photography?
Razor Ramon?
Well, we took an experiment. We'll we'll use it as our inside joke for the rest of our lives. We love you, Razor. We wish you best. But and again, what's cool about this, even that memory right there, right? How we choose to amplify that reality of like, well, we took a shot in the dark. Can we learn from it? Can we laugh about it? It becomes an opportunity for you to choose. How do you allow these experiences in your life to affect your future? The choice is yours. So I highly recommend hiring somebody like Daniel Grove, DanielGrovePhoto.com, hiring Daniel Grove for photography, and building these types of images. If you got a kid that's struggling with insecurities, this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
To help them find a balance of like why they're special and valuable to the world, and you just can't put a price on the value.
I've seen that boost in confidence in that almost like form of artistic medication for kids and teenagers, that this type of work has been really influential in their adolescence, growing up and seeing themselves in a new light, not being embarrassed about that thing they're into, their hobby, their nerdy thing, their cosplay, whatever. Girls seeing themselves as beautiful and powerful and, as an individual that it has value. Photo shoots do give someone worth. That the fact that I would do all that I do to capture photos, and the fact that their parents or loved one would hire me and go out of the way to plan this whole thing for them, that's really impactful for young people.
It's amazing.
I love it.
I love what you do, man. Visionaries listening in, bringing your vision to life in the form of a photo or in the form of a design is one of the most powerful things that you can do as well. The same thing happened when we created the logo for First Class Business years ago. Me and a team on Fiverr created that logo. As it came to fruition, it empowered me to realize, wow, I really can bring this thing to life. This is really the direction I want to go. And it has led to so many amazing opportunities for really serving people at a new level, because it's empowered me to say, you know what, I'm onto something here. I'm onto something that matters and will help people. And, I wouldn't have had this show without that experience building confidence for me along the way. As dumb as a caricature of a hero might seem, or as misplaced as people assume that hero is me. It's not me. It's the people we serve. It's the business owners that we are helping accomplish their dreams. We're simply the Alfred behind the scenes, helping with the operations as Batman goes out and saves the day. So Daniel, thank you for coming in and sharing your vision. Those of you listening in, you'll be able to access Daniel through all social media platforms that he's connected to. And down below the vision, we'll have the action steps that you can take to get involved with this work. Whether you're local to San Antonio or not, you might think, man, I wish I could work with them, but I live here. Well, cover the T&E, cover the travel and expenses. Bring Daniel out, allow him to get involved in your events. I imagine you'd want to travel. Is that the case?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So especially when the price is right, bring his whole family, pay for all of them to
I'll definitely want to go then.
Enjoy that. What was that?
I said, I'll definitely want to go then.
Yeah, for real. Like, and what do you want? Like, you want a happy photographer, a happy service provider. Those are the types of people who go to the ends of the earth to provide great solutions for you. And the same is applicable for any service provider you might work with. there's an opportunity there to solidify your legacy at a new level, serve people to even greater capacity, and make sure that you're transforming your future for your best self as well. So Daniel, thank you so much for being here. Any final thoughts before I wrap up? I know we're over.
And we covered a lot of good stuff. So I can't think of anything else right now.
Awesome. Well, I'll see you behind the scenes. Visionaries, if you feel inspired, in the top right corner, it says be our guest. We'd love to have you as a guest on the show as well. And we will see you in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent